Hi guys, Tuga here with a new video, and this video will be my solo shuffle tier list video for 10.2 Dragonflight. Of course, we're going to update it multiple times depending on the patches, but right now we have the patch where they nerfed DH, they nerfed DK, they nerfed Resto Druid, they did a few buffs here and there, and I'm going to discuss all of them. But I have a clear idea on the strength of every spec, pretty much, except a few ones where I feel like do they even exist anymore? But I also have like a helpful site which is Dressfar, so please do go on Dressfar if you want to see stats. But these stats are not only from this week, and this week we had some patch notes, so you cannot really rely only on these stats because everyone has already their CR, or some people are currently farming CR while they weren't really farming CR. So this is going to help us, but it's not going to be the end all by all. I'm going to use the experience I have in social shuffle on multiple classes, also on streams, also the certain sentiment that we have in the community, and also some stats here and there. But I'm going to give you the reasons why. So that's why the video will be long, because I kind of try to explain every single placement on the tier list. I'm going to drink some water and then we can start right away with Affliction Warlock. So Affliction Warlock is an interesting spec where I feel like in threes it has a bit more power, a bit more strength, I would say, because of of being able to choose your allies. While in Soul Shuffle, it feels like it is really not that great because of the fact that you are not really squishy, but you're very stoppable. You can actually get trained by a melee lobby and it will be horrible for you. And sometimes you have the odd lobby where you have three other classes in your team, again in your soul shuffle lobby, excuse me, and you would have a greater time. And I feel like with Affliction Warlock, I can safely say that it is average to the point where I feel confident putting him in B tier. I could again, B tier is like average to good. I'm going to write it again. It's good, average. It's not bad, but it's like not the meta. It's not like you're going to be afraid of facing a Affliction Warlock. Certain specs will be afraid of facing Affliction Warlocks, for example. If you are like a caster, you could be very afraid. If you're a healer and you don't like to dispel or whatever, you're going to be very like annoyed by it. But if you're a melee in general, like an arms warrior or even an unholy DK or a DH, you're going to have a relative good time versus Affliction Warlock. And I don't feel like it's a meta spec. I don't feel like it's also a bad spec. So that's why I think it's like middle of the road, which is not bad. To be honest, any spec should be around A and B tier if you want to have a balanced game. But right now you have S tiers, C tiers, and D tiers, and unfortunately that is just the reality of the things. I want to talk first about the Warlock specs, with Destruction Warlock being, I think, a S tier spec. Again, it's like kind of under the radar because you have DHs and DKs that are very strong, but I think Destruction Warlock has a lot of things going on for them, especially with the Force Set. The Force Set is going to be insane for you Warlocks. But right now you have a 2 set, which again, your damage is composed to immolate, and the fact that you can actually do a lot of incinerates, and that will not be stopped because people are trying to stop chaos bolts. But incinerate actually does 70% of the damage of a chaos bolt in general, and if you're critting, it's going to be resembling as a chaos bolt damage. Of course, it's never going to be 300k, but doing a 150k incinerate is not rare. I often did not do that on my Warlock if I'm bursting, for example. So that is something that can happen, and nobody's going to kick an incinerate. If they do kick an incinerate, it will be an easy follow-up with a fear and then a kills bolt spam, for example. So I feel like it's a S tier. Again, I try to judge casters with casters and melees with melees, but I do feel like Destruction Warlock in a melee lobby can exist just because of their kit. And if you don't focus too much on throwing chaos bolts to finish games, and you try to focus on incinerates, on your immolates, on your chaos bolts and shadow burn, you can actually do a lot of damage without actually knowing that you're doing damage, and they are not going to notice until the end of the game. Demonology Warlock, I'm going to be safely saying that it's an S tier spec. It hasn't been touched with a nerf this patch, which is kind of weird because they kind of deserve a nerf for some reason. It's very hard because again, sometimes when I play this Demonology Warlock, I don't understand where the damage is coming from, and it's also like you need to cast a lot, but even then you're alright for them going on you most of the time because of your mobility, because of your durability, because of having a Fellord. You can put the Fellord onto you, so if you don't move, they get hit by the Fellord. It's interesting that Tyrant is not really your main damage anymore. It's there, but it's not your main damage, and you can actually dish a lot of damage without them knowing that, look, you're bursting. And it's actually interesting, and I feel like Demonology Warlock, they are S tier. It's very hard to nerf though, because what would they nerf? I think they would nerf Felguard probably, and they would nerf maybe the Demon Bites, but again, the damage is there, and it's very weird. I think it still needs a rework in my opinion, but we'll have to see. If they nerf it, I think they will drop very, very quickly to other tiers. But right now with the damage, it's kind of free damage. I do feel like confident it's a S tier spec. I want to talk about Evokers first. I think Devastation Evoker are sleeper specs right now. Devastation is actually played very much on the Soul Shuffle ladder. 2100 and more on US and EU. You have also a lot of Devastation, which previous season they were like bottom tier. And again, statistics are not everything. The main sentiment is I see way more devastations these days, even at lower tiers, even at mid tiers, and even at higher MMRs. So again, I feel like they're a bit better than Affliction just because of their cheesing factor of doing a lot of damage. I think in threes it's way more stoppable though, but in Soul Shuffle with coordination and healers not noticing the one shots from the evokers, from the Devastation Evokers, I do feel like they can get out with a lot of free wins, while in threes you can say to your healer, look, he's bursting, we have to spend something for that. And in Soul Shuffle, again, if you're not spending and the healer is not spending something, you're bound to die. So I think it's a good A tier. I think it's really close to being meta. I think it's meta. I think it's closer to B tier than S tier, let's be honest, but it is deserving the A tier because I do feel like it's better than Affliction Warlock these days. Augmentation Evoker has been out of this map. I'm going to put them at D tier, and it kind of shows also in representation, but also main sentiment. I don't play versus Augmentation Evokers anymore. And when I do, they go 0-6 or they go 2-4 or they go even 1-5, and this is like because of the nerves, I guess, or because of the meta that changed, and just the burstiness of this current meta, and the off-heals got nerfed from Augmentation Evoker, the tankiness of the Augmentation Evoker got nerfed, the buffs that they give are also nerfed in PvP. So again, I think everything combined makes Augmentation Evoker not that great anymore. Again, maybe I'm a bit harsh by putting them T tier. Maybe I'm going to put it in C tier with underplayed, like undervalued, underplayed. And just not really great. But D tier, I don't know. I'll have to see if I'm putting it in D tier or not. But I think it does deserve a lower rating than previous season, which is a good thing. I think with supports being a thing in this game, they need to put more supports in the game to make it more even. If there is only one support and the support is like very, very strong, it just jumps into S tier category because you don't have any like competition against that. If we talk about Preservation Evoker, I think my sentiment is, I know some people do say that it's like okay and it's unrepresented because it is just one of those specs that are just not that played, but I do feel like there is no smoke without fire. I do feel like it is not that great at the moment. It doesn't heal that much. It has potential, but I feel like the tier set from the season 1 actually misses a lot the Preservation Evoker. I do feel like if they actually added that into the kit, it would feel way better, but I do feel like they don't have the throughput to heal the current damage in this game. So I'm going to put it in C tier. Whenever I'm playing with a Preservation Evoker, I do feel always it's kind of bad. There are a few ones that are very good, but they play super aggressive to the point where I do feel like they're playing DPS. And I don't know if you're playing a normal lobby, which normally should be longer than 2 minutes round. I feel like Preservation auto loses every single time whenever it's like longer than a 2 minute match. So C tier, I think it's probably deserved. Again, I'm not rating ranged versus healers versus melee, so it will be melees, ranged, healers. So it doesn't matter the placement how they are versus each other. Only melees with melees, ranged with ranged, and healers with healers. I want to talk briefly about hunters. I think it's like a slept spec as well. I'm going to put it in S tier. I know it's very top heavy, but in Soul Shuffle, it is really feeling like that. Whenever whenever you heal a few Soul Shuffles, and whenever you play a lot of Soul Shuffles in DPS, you do feel like it's really bursty, and a lot of specs are doing very well, and it feels like you're scared about every single spec in the lobby depending on the situation. So I do feel like BM hunts are kind of sleeper. People are like sleeping on it, like the damage that they do is pretty unavoidable. I made a guide about it, by the way, so if you want to check that out, you can always check that out, and you would maybe understand why BM is strong. Even though if you're not playing BM, at least you understand how it can be stopped, but also how they play, so you can actually like circumvent it. But in general, they have like very hidden damage that is not really showing until you open the tab and you see, oh man, he's top DPS while he's kiting the whole game. How come? And that is actually what is going on. Especially the 2 set is very strong, the 4 set is very strong. Everything is very strong from BM Hunter. So I do feel like they scale even better in the future once you have 4 set, which is normally next week if you are like very lucky. So be careful. I think BM Hunter is like very strong. I do feel like they're going to get nerfed, but we'll have to see. MM Hunter, they have a few nerfs on the 4 set already incoming, although nobody's really playing with 4 set right now. But it is going to be very strong. I do feel like it's slightly stoppable because of the nature of MM Hunter and not being very defensive. I do feel like you can carry the games because of your damage, but it's very difficult. I don't feel like scared playing versus an MM Hunter, and now the ladders kind of shows like, look, MM Hunters are not that good. But it's mainly because people are waiting for the 4 set, or their power spike is still not there, because the 4 set is going to enable a lot of things. So I'm going to put it in B tier, because I do feel like, and it's more average than good, by the way, because I feel like they can be stopped because of their poor defensives. It's very, very likely that you die very quickly as well, and you kind of need a lot of peel to make the spec work. But the damage itself can carry a lot of games, like affliction warlocks. If you let them do, they are going to do something to your team. And you have some good lobbies as well. It's not like you only have bad lobbies. If you play versus a mage, it's already a very good lobby for you. If you play versus another caster, it's also a very good lobby for you. It just becomes very annoying whenever you're facing a DH, Arms Warrior, DK in the same lobby. And then it feels like you're just going to try to survive the lobby, and that just because of that factor, you cannot really put them very high. While Destruction Warlock, and Demonology Warlock has a lot of instance, a lot of like TPs, a lot of portal usage, a lot of CC usage as well. I do feel like they have way more than MM, and that's why I give a lot of like space between them. And Affliction Warlock, again, their damage is very much relying on longer duration games, which MM Hunters are like the opposite. They want shorter games where their burst is going to be noticeable. Let's talk about DKs. I think it's safe to say that DK is also S tier. Again, I'm very sorry. It is. Let's talk first and foremost about Survival Hunter. Survival Hunter, I do feel like they're strong, but I'm going to drop them to B tier. I do feel like the 4 set is not going to be too good. Also, you'll have to sacrifice something to get Fury of the Eagle if you want to play 4 set. I do feel like it's more of the same, and even though you are unchanged, I do feel like the other specs are like outpacing you most of the time. I do play Survival as well. I did have some good lobbies, I did some positive wins again, but I'm not really sure about their win condition. It's very difficult because you cannot really survive too much. I do feel like the nerfs on the dispel from feign death, which is now gone, is making a lot like difficult to do the same things that you could do in season 1 and season 2. Um, and also, like, even though it's not a popular spec, let's be honest, it has 7 specs in total for EU, and for US you only have 4. um, it's very low. It is very low. Into 2100 range. Again, stats are not everything. Popularity is not always tied to power. Warriors are often always the most played spec out there because a lot of people are like Arms Warrior. The same for Retribution Paladin. But I do feel like Survival Hunter are in the category of, look, it's average. They can do something, but they are probably tied with something in the future where they have to have a rework. In my opinion, Unholy DK S tier, like I said, it's very top heavy, but it is for a reason. I think it's very strong. Defcall is doing for 100k, even nerfed like towards 85k, with also festering wounds pops because of the Doomburst talent, I think, PvP talent, I think it's called like that, where you pop festering wounds with Defcoil. It does just a lot of obscene damage. A score strike doing a lot of damage. Your pets and dots are irrelevant, except that to like boost your damage. I do feel like Unholy DK is in the right spot because of the meta. Again, if classes are very strong, Unholy DK by themselves can do a lot of things. If Arms Warrior is the strongest spec, it becomes a bit less interesting to play Unholy DK. But right now it is not the case. I think Unholy DK is better than most of the specs, and I do feel like it's a S tier in general. I want to talk about Frost DK, and I want to do a minute of silence for Frost DK, which is again D tier. Again, since season 1, it is already like a painful spec to play. I've played a bit of Frost DK. I got obliterated, and it seems that I do less damage than previous season because the 4 set actually was a good 4 set, I guess. And now the 4 set is also not that bad, but it's again about chill streak, and chill streak can be stopped easily if you take just a bit of distance, and you can actually liberate yourself from the initial damage. A freedom just ruins any potential. A lot of specs actually ruins a lot of potential of Frost DK. I think they need a rework. I think they need an identity back. I think they need something to make Frost DK again great for this game. And I feel like they are not it. They are cheesy. You can probably climb. I'm not saying that, but you have to be like very good. Again, you have no Frost DK on 2100 in EU, by the way. No Frost DK in EU above 2100. In the US, you have only 2, and the 2s are probably always the same guys that are actually streamers or YouTubers that play Frost DK for content, but be sure they prefer to play Unholy DK at this time. They only do that for content, which I respect because I do that as well, but this is not an indication of it is possible to climb. Again, you can climb. You can even climb with like a controller. You can be the best controller player and play like on an Xbox controller and win games. I'm not saying that, but it doesn't mean that you can do it. That it means that it is possible to do for the mass majority of players. If you're playing DH, I can guarantee you can climb very safely to 2100 because it is the wave that you can surf on. But if you're trying to surf the wave of Frost DK, you're going to surf into 1600, 1500, 1400, 1200 category most of the time. Even if you're going to broaden the way of rating, 1800 even, you only have 21 Frost DKs in US, and in EU only 14, by the way. 14, and in EU you have 1100 DHs in comparison. So it's not even 1%. It's so low, man. It's ridiculous. So again, it needs a rework. I don't think they can slap a aura buff. I don't think it's the problem. The problem is the spec is not really relevant outside of Pillar of Frost. It does okay damage, but for doing a 50k obliterate, mind you, outside of Pillar of Frost, is nothing. You're doing an overpower of a warrior, it does times do the damage. Times 2. Without any CDs. So change something about Frost Decay, or I don't know, take it away of the game. They need to rework PvP turns, they need to rework the whole spec. And the issue is in PvE it is not half bad. That's the problem. The problem of Frost Decay is they are not half bad, and that's why they're not going to get reworked. The same for Enhancement Shaman. They're not going to rework Enhancement Shaman because for some reason they're good specs in PvE. And people are not going to complain about good specs in PvE. But trust me, in PvP, if they actually touched Frost Decay, they would understand like it doesn't work as a spec. And even in 3s it doesn't work. Even in 2s it doesn't work. There is no environment where it can work except maybe solo queue RPGs. But for now, it is not a rated environment, so you have no possible way to judge that spec in PvP rated environment. But whatever, this is my rant. I'm sorry guys, Frost Decay is D tier again. I wish it was higher, but it is not. And I really wish it was higher. I wish it was S tier, man. I really wish it. And a lot of people actually don't wish to be S tier. Some people are playing Unholy Decay, they are saying, but downgrade is not S tier, man. It is A tier. Please do not get us nerfed. I understand that. But I would like to have Frost Decay in S tier because I want to like Frost Decay. But right now, I cannot like a spec where I am playing in negative. I'm playing with a handicap. It is not fun. Whatever. Let's talk about warriors. Normally I do warriors out always at the end. I feel like Fury are actually very close to Frost Decay. I'm very hesitating making them go D tier. I'm for real. I feel like Fury warriors are not that great as well. I think there is only like 4 of them in EU, and you have only 3 of them in US. It is same kind of like not judging but rating as a Frost Decay if you're looking at participation to rating ratio. But the weirdest thing is you have a lot of Fury Warriors that play Fury Warriors. They love Fury Warrior because of the name it has, because of the feeling it has for some reason. Because for now the feeling is not there for me, at least. I will need to test a lot of builds to make it fun for myself, because it is not fun currently for me. It is a popular spec being D tier, so it means that it is played. It can be that you can actually climb with it, but it is because you have a bigger pool of players actually playing Fury Warrior. It is not because Fury Warrior is like unplayed. It is just a niche spec, and that's why it is so lowly represented in the ladder. It is not the case. It is not a Feral Druid. It is not a Frost Decay. It is not an Outlaw Rogue. It is not like that kind of spec where it's very niche to play. Fury Warrior, if it's popular, whenever it's getting popular and strong, it gets easily A tier because of that. But right now it is not popular because it's strong. It is just popular because of the name and because of playstyle for some reason, or because of the feeling. But it is D tier. It is really close to Frost Decay. I want to put them at C tier, but it is my bias by doing it. If I do put Fury Warriors in C tier, it means that I'm very biased because I do play Warrior, and I do want Fury Warrior to be a bit higher, because again, it means also more content for me. It means also that I'm going to enjoy my time a bit more to play Fury Warrior and to make content about it. But it is currently bad design. They changed something in PvP that should not be changed. I don't know. I don't know if it's in PvE as well changed. I think it's also changed in PvE. I think it's a PvE change, by the way, and it also dribbled down to PvP. But it is a bad change, and they need to rework ASAP Fury. I think it's the same thing as Frost Decay. They cannot balance it correctly. It's either S tier or D tier. There's no in between. And for me right now, it is D tier. I'm very sorry. In Arms Warrior though, I want to put them at S tier, but I want to maybe put them at S tier, but hear me out. I have other specs that are going to be S tier, and I feel like, do I want to put them some separation in the tiers so you can actually recognize, okay, those specs are S tiers and those specs are a bit less S tier, so that's why they are A tier. Or I put them at the same stage, S tier, but then you will have to decide if DKs are and arms warrior are equal, which in my books they are not. I'm going to explain why. For me, it's A tier, and it is not my bias. Again, I play arms. I want them to be S tier because then I would be wrecking people again. But again, I do wreck people. But you understand me. I'm going to explain why. DKs are not a popular spec, class in general. If Arms Warrior and DK are equal, you will never see Arms Warrior lowly represented than a Unholy DK on the ladder. Never. Never. And that is because the amount of players that play Warrior and the amount of players that they play DKs are not equal. You see way more Warriors in general than DKs. That's always the case because people like and prefer to play Warrior in retail. On RAF it's a bit different, but in retail it is like this. So for Warriors being less represented in on the ladders at higher tiers means that for me it is on a lower tier. It is just in general, but I'm going to explain also why, not only because of stats, but also because of feeling. Arms Warrior has some clear weaknesses. Normally DKs has that as well, but the meta kinda is shifting towards a more magic damage dealing thing with Destrolocks, Demolocks, even DHs. You have also other classes like Elemental Shaman, Boomies. You have a lot of like classes that are actually very good at the moment. And then you have DH and DK, and DK can actually play with all those classes as well together, but also they can play with DH. And DK is also very good with an Arms Warrior. They have a lot of great partnerships which can work in solo shuffle without any coordination because DK provide a lot of CC with Strangulate, with Asphyxiate, with Abomination Limb, with a lot of multi-grips. They can also Blinding Sleet. They have a lot of CC available to make the life of a healer very, very poor. And that's why for me there is separation. While Arms Warrior, they have a lot of damage, I concede to you. I also do a lot of crit damage. I can sometimes wreck someone on just a switch. That is happening. But trust me, try to play versus a Frost Mage and a Destrolock in the same lobby. I dare you. A Destrolock and a Frost Mage against you. I dare you. I'm going to laugh my bottom off because of that situation, because that is a very possible situation. Or try to play Demonology Warlock with, let's say, a Unholy DK versus you. You're going to get obliterated in one stun because you cannot defend yourself in the stun as well. But Die by the Sword is just ineffective versus Unholy DK, ineffective versus other casters. I think Demonology Warlock is not the best example because Die by the Sword can actually stop a few pet attacks. But Arms Warrior has clear weaknesses. They can heal for a lot, by the way. Ignore Pain is very strong. They have Impending Victory. They can survive damage. But it's not on the same scale. And it does show on the stats. It does show on the feeling of the lobbies. It does show of the current meta as well. A tier is not bad, by the way, guys. A tier means that you can climb very high, very quickly as well. If you're a pro Arms Warrior, you're going to have a blast. If you're going to have a pro Evoker, Devastation Evoker as well, you're going to have a blast as well. If you're an S tier, it means that you have a bit better blast. I would say you have a bit better lobbies for you. But Arms Warrior is in general going to be more popular if it was very strong. If it was very, very strong, like S tier strong, you would be seeing Arms Warrior jumping in instead of DHs because people like playing Arms Warrior. Arms Warrior is actually very fun. So that's not an issue. But I think people can understand that. If you want to fight me on it in the comment section below, please do. We can fight about it. You can say that my tier lists suck because of that. I don't care. I feel like I give a lot of arguments, a lot of like... I defend my position pretty well in my opinion, but if you want to defend your position against that, you can do that. I will be listening, but don't say that it's bad and then say nothing against it. Please give me opinions, give me feedback, give me your reasoning behind the placements that you would do instead, because again, saying that something is bad and then stopping the conversation is stupid. But that's my opinion. That's my opinion again. Anyways, let's talk about windwalkers. I think windwalkers is also a safe discussion for me. I think fist weaving is nerfed, but it does feel strong still because they didn't get nerfed on the healing part. They did get nerfed on the damage part. They are also very represented, but this is also statistics. Again, they got nerfed, so it could be that it's like stagnant and they will not grow. In my opinion, from what I've faced, I do feel like they're not S tier maybe, because it is still stoppable because of some lobbies. I do feel like it's A tier though. They might be S tier again. Depends on, again, tier list positioning always depends on perspective. For me, S tier means that it's just an A tier but being better than A tier. I do feel like fist weaving can carry games, but some games are a bit harder to carry than others, and those games are like heavy CC option, or if you're facing a DH and you have a bad composition, you're going to get wrecked somehow, some way. Yeah, I do feel like you can be stopped by a few healing healers that can actually position well, but that's another discussion. But I feel like right now A tier is a good position for them. If you look on the ladder as well, windwalkers are actually very represented, and it's not really a popular spec as well. And I'm going to say that it's a niche spec. Not everyone is wanting to play windwalker, but I do feel like it's very hard. I want to put them on the same tier as arms, but I do feel like it would be not justified, and that's why I'm going to you know what, to make something clear. I think that arms warrior, if you want to put a extra tier, it would be A plus, and that would be arms warrior being A plus. I know I always add extra tiers every single tier list, but I do feel like I need some separation. Windwalker is strong. I think it's meta. I think you could do very well on it, but I don't think you have as many good lobbies as an arms warrior, for example. So you see, I'm not really that biased. I don't put arms warrior with windwalker together, although I feel like they're very strong. I don't feel like they're same-ish strong. So I need to make some separation, although you could put them, look, first arms warrior then windwalker, but people sometimes don't understand that you have also some nuance in placements within a tier. But I'm going to put them at A plus, and windwalker at A, so you understand, look, unholy DK is the better one. Arms warrior is also very good, that's why it's A plus, and it's very close to S tier, but there are some differences between unholy DK and arms warrior, and then you have still also some differences with windwalker, and that's why I'm going to put them at A tier. And now I'm going to talk about Retribution Paladin. I play Retribution Paladin. I've played against Retribution Paladin. It's a highly popular spec. You will see a lot of them because it just is a spec that is very fun to play. And you also see on the ladder, it's 4th represented on 1800 plus in the US, and EU you have also 4th one. And if you go to 2100, it kind of drops into the 5th position. And for US you have the 4th position still, but very close to Windwalker, which is kind of my sentiment as well. I do feel like they're very strong. They do have bad lobbies as well, but it's simply because you have a lot of lobbies where you have physical damage and you have also some magical damage. And BUFFs are very great, but they cannot get stopped. They cannot stop magic damage, and they can also get dispelled, which is very, very bad for you guys because Disc Priest is very strong currently. So dispels is not something that is not really rare. It is happening. It can happen to you. It will happen to you. And you can face also a DH that can dispel. You can face a Shadow Priest that can dispel. You can face a Resto Shaman that can dispel. God forbid you face a Devastation Evoker that has the PvP talent on, so he can dispel on Fire Breath. You have a lot of dispels in the game, which in general you're going to have a bad time. That's why I'm going to put them at A tier. I'm going to put and say that they are equal to Windwalker. It's very hard to tier them within a tier. I could put a Retribution ahead of Windwalker, or I could put it beside, like below Windwalker, but I do feel like their power level are very close, so I feel like they deserve the A tier. But again, that's my opinion. If you like, let me know in the comment section below what you think about Retribution Paladin. I would like to hear it. Also, they like self-healing, and that's pretty visible as well whenever you're playing a Retribution Paladin in Soul Shuffle. Let's talk about DH. I think it's an easy placement. They are still S tier even after the nerfs. I think the damage is still there, and there is one problem, and it is called chaotic disposition. I think it's on the talent calculator. I'm going to show you guys so you can see what the problem is with having Demon Hunter currently. So they have a talent, and it is called chaotic disposition. If you can see on the screen. It is a talent which actually, with a lot of luck, is decimating you. And I really weigh my words whenever I'm saying that. Your chaos damage has a 7.77% chance to be increased by 17%, occurring up to 7 times whenever you're having 2 ranks on it. So if you're very lucky, it can occur 7 times. 7 times 17% makes you get a 300k death sweep, even after the nerfs. So this is making DH very hard to balance, to be honest. I do feel like this talent should kind of not exist in PvP because it just makes it very hard to balance. But it's very hard because it does exist in PvE, so you cannot really modify your talent, your spec, basically because of a game mode. So I do feel like they have to nerf that before they nerf anything else. But what they do right now is they nerf other pieces, which has nothing to do with the current problem of the age. And then they're going to say, oh, this position is actually very like dangerous for our game. Let's nerf it. And at that point, you will see DH go back to B tier. So my suggestion to the Blizzard developers would be to take out the RNG thing, because the RNG thing has nothing to do with the H's, by the way. It is not an enhancement shaman, it is not a RNG machine, it is just a DH, which is something very consistent, but they added something RNG, and that RNG is breaking the spec. So nerf the RNG, let the damage be how it is, and then decide if it's getting a nerf. Right now you're nerfing the other parts, which has nothing to do with the problem, and then you're nerfing chaotic disposition in the near future, which is going to make DH a problem to the negative side. Anyways, again, if you have a DH player in the comment section below, please let me know if you're agreeing with my statement. Is chaotic disposition the problem? Because I feel like it is. I've played with a lot of DHs and they already saw and said to me that really that talent is the main problem of the damage of a DH. With the luck tied to it, can destroy a lobby for you, and for real, it can destroy a lobby for you. So I feel like they could nerf that, and I think the H's would be okay. But right now you have that, so it means that they need to be nerfed, and they nerf other parts that has nothing to do with their current problem. At least that's my opinion. Now I want to talk about. Let's talk about Priest. I want to talk about Priest really quickly. I think Shadow Priest has an issue, but I think it's mainly because it's not really popular right now. But also, it should be popular because Priest is one of the more popular classes. Like Warriors and Fury Warriors and Arms Warrior, they are like played by a lot of fans. And in general, you'll always have the same people climbing on the ladder because they just love Shadow Priest. But I think it's very hard to love Shadow Priest because of the casting factor. You have to cast a lot, and that's very annoying most of the time. I think a lot of people just don't like it anymore, I think. But I do feel like CC is very important in Soul Shuffle. I do feel like just one CC chain can win you the game. I know trinkets are nerfed, so maybe that's why it's not doing very well. Nerfed, I mean buffed for healers, but nerfed for DPS, I guess. But I do feel like still having a stun into a silence into a fear should be powerful. And the force it is not bad, but I feel like it's super nerfed in PvP though. I mean, is it bad for me to put them at B tier on lower scale than MM? I feel like I'm biased because it feels like you don't have a lot of players that play Shadow Priest. But I do feel like, again, it's mostly because I think people are just not playing Shadow Priest because they don't like the playstyle right now. I do feel like in theory you should be able as a Shadow Priest to win games just basically because of CC. You have a stun, you have a fear, you have a silence. Again, mind control is not usable in Soul Shuffle because of people going for you most of the time. Again, it's not going to be very fun to have two melees on you every single time. I think the meta kind of plays against you. DK is actually very bad for you, but you have also great lobbies because if you play with a DK as a Shadow Priest, you can win games pretty easily as well. So it's a double-edged sword where you're playing versus your nemesis, but you also play with your nemesis, which is your best ally as well at the same time. So I do feel like right now I'm going to put them at average. I don't think they're on the same level as augmentation evokers, so that's why I'm going to put them some separation. But I do feel like putting them higher would be disingenuous, but also not really the best way to have a fair tier list, in my opinion. Disc Priest. I think it's S tier. I think damage that they add is really important. I think Ultimate Penitence, which was a meme in the PTR, actually is not a meme. I think it does a lot of damage. It's very free, by the way. It's also the best defensive that they have. Like, they can instant heal everyone, which is something that Holy Paladin had in Season 2, which with Daybreak. And right now, Disc Priest has that with Ultimate Penitence, although it's a 4-minute CD. If you use it wisely, you can also just win games because of that. I feel confident put them in S tier. Again, it's a bit treacherous to see and to look up the stats on Disc Priest in Justfall because again, Disc Priest is one of the most popular specs in the game. Everyone loves playing Disc Priest. Even DPS loves to play Disc Priest in general. So it is a popular spec that is played way more than other specs. And you see that they have 82 Disc Priests above 2100, while Resto Druids have 81. So again, is it making them S tier or not? In my opinion, they do feel S tier. I do feel like they are untouched and they might be touched in the future, but right now it's mostly a Disc Priest healing game. But again, you have other heals being good, but I think Disc Priest is actually very good, so I think they deserve the S tier. Holy Priest, it's very tough to judge because I do feel like most players that play Holy Priest also play Disc Priest and they feel like Disc Priest is way more fun to play than Holy Priest, so why bother? But I also faced a lot of Holy Priests where I felt like they don't have the throughput, or they don't have the defensives, they don't have the medication, the healing, the mana is also not great. They have some damage, but they have to cost for it. So I'm going to put them at C tier, I think on the same level as Evokers, maybe lower actually. I don't want to put them at D tier because I feel like a healing spec D tier would not really happen with current meta, but I do feel like they're stoppable. I think they are predictable as well. They thrive into cleaves because their Prayer of Mending is actually healing for a lot, but I don't know. I think it's easier. Maybe it will change with Foresight. I don't know if the Foresight is good or not. I haven't seen it, but right now it is underwhelming for the least. Let's talk about Holy Paladin because I actually skipped Holy Paladin. I think Holy Paladin is actually better because of the mana buffs they got, but they don't play in a great meta. I think it's because of DH and DK being that strong, and then Destruction Warlock and Demonology Warlock. Bob doesn't do too much. They might be better once they got nerfed, because I think they will get nerfed. But right now, I do feel like they are better than Evokers and Holy Priests, but they are not really that far. I think the gap for Fist Weaving and Holy Paladin is a bit bigger, and that's why I think I'm going to put Fist Weaving a bit higher. I think it's A+. I think it's really 2 tiers difference, and Fist Weaving is not that bad. Like it's not that it's bad. But I mean, it's not that different than a Disc Priest. I think Disc Priest has just way more options in certain lobbies. I think Holy Paladin is B tier. Again, if you're playing a Holy Paladin, let me know what you think. I think I judge it correctly with how the meta is rolling out. You don't face a lot of physical damage dealers, so Bob doesn't really do too much. Let's talk about druids, so I can judge resto druid. I think resto druid, they are a bit better than fist weaving, but they are a bit worse than disc priest. They got nerfs on treants, which is a big portion of the healing, and I feel like the forset is good, but nobody's really playing forset right now because we need one more week. But I feel like they will get nerfed even more in the future, but right now they got nerfed, they got hit. It does feel like in social fall you have more time to heal than anything else. Doing damage or doing cyclones is actually very risky, and it's actually a blessing for you that social fall is without communication, because with communication it's actually very easy to switch on the rest of the druid in trees. So right now I think it's A+, and I think it's deserved. But it's tough. It's really tough to give a opinion, a hard opinion about Resto Druid currently. Sometimes I feel like they're very strong, and then sometimes I feel like they're very meh. I mean, compared to Disc Priest, huh? Because they're still like godly strong versus Holy Paladin, for example. Let's talk about Boomy. I think Boomy is very strong. I think Root Beam being there, I think Cyclone being one of the better CCs in the game. I think having one of the bigger bursts in the game is very, very respectful, I would say. I would say playing versus a Boomy always gives me the icky factor where I don't want to face them. I do feel like they are not SEO though. They are quite strong though. I think they are very close of being more likely being A tier, but I do feel like there's some separation needed between Devastation Evoker and Boomy. And I do feel like they are a bit less strong than Desto because of how they deal damage. Also, being targeted by 2 melees is actually not that great from Bounce Druid currently. Especially DHD DK, I think it's obnoxious to face. But Bounce Druid can actually win a game because of the CC that they can provide, and if they are untouched, and people are not going on the Bounce Druid, it feels like a free game most of the time. So I think A+ is deserved. Let's talk about Feral. So I kind of overshot Feral, and it kind of shows, but again, this is the eternal conversation. Does representation on ladder confirm a rating on the tier list? Which, again, if you ask me, Feral Druid, is it a niche spec? I would always say yes. I think even whenever it's strong, it is not really represented that much. Even whenever in Season 1 it was an AoE bot, literally, and you would win just by pressing AoE, you still didn't see them top 1 or top 2. They always like had top 3, top 4 contenders place because of the amount of people that actually play Feral Druid. If you are like looking at above 1800, you see you only have 43 Feral Druids in US, and in EU you have 40. So is it bad for me to put them high while they have no representation? I don't know, but I feel like the foresight is very strong and it will enable a lot of things. But I think currently it just is the meta that is not really great for you. I think that would be the only reason, because I don't think that Feral Druid has been nerfed as well. So I think it's a situation where why is it lower than previous season? So I'm going to put them at B tier. I know you're going to hate me for it. I think people are going to ask for C tier, but I don't think it's a C tier spec. I think it's a very hard spec to play though, very hard to survive. And I know, okay, it's maybe more average than good, but I feel like they cannot be C tier. Like I think whenever I'm facing a Feral Druid and they're very good, they kind of carry games. And yes, you have the odd bad one and that cannot survive a burst and they cannot go both bear form or they cannot kite or whatever, but or you have Feral Druids, they spam regrowth on themselves, which is not really optimal. Regrowth only heals for 40k. For 40k. So what they need to do is actually spam entangling roots on the melees, on warriors, on the H's, on DKs even. And that does difference because, again, roots are going to prevent a lot of damage. So instead of healing 40k, you would prevent 100k. So that's actually a very good comparison of a good feral druid that actually spams entangling roots. So I'm thinking about Snoopy, for example. He plays like that, and a lot of other ferals that plays like that on the ladder. And then you have like the odd feral druid that actually makes healing, actually he tries making healing something that is working for feral druid, which is not working currently. You try to do a regrowth here and there, but you want to spam entangling roots on focus 1 and focus 2. Or I mean enemy 1 and enemy 2, pretty much. So right now I think I'm going to put them at B tier because I think it's purely about skill that makes it probably a hard spec to play. But I don't think the power of a feral druid is bad. I think it's mostly like some people are not that good on it. Let's talk about mage. I think mage is interesting because I think they can win games which are probably not really always a easy win. They can steal games like rogues can do with smoke bomb. Fire mage could do the same. Arcane mages as well, and frost mages as well. I think the buff on frost mage has been very good though. I think the meta makes that it is not really that strong, but I do feel like it's A tier. Let me explain why. Frostbomb doing 250ks, 300ks. Glacial Spikes doing 300ks as well. Frostbolt, if you're playing a Frostbolt spec, you can actually crit for 200k, so maybe you should do that. I think there is a world where Frost Mages could be lower. They could be the same rating as the Affliction Warlock, but I feel like Frost Mages are a bit more scary. They have way more interesting things, like for example Ice Block. They have a double Ice Block, by the way, as well. They have slows. They can actually control the map as well. I think it's also highly dependent on the healer and not knowing how they will heal you. But I think Frost Mages with the buffs, and also I try to play Frost Mage these days, so I kind of feel the buffs as well. So I feel like it's a interesting spec, and I would say it's a A tier spec, although very low on the A tier spectrum, I would say. Arcane Mages, I'm going to put them at B tier. I don't think it's OP. I don't think it's bad. I think it's just good. I think it's a good spec. It can sustain a lot of heal damage. They can actually like be slippery. They are annoying to face. The foresight is actually very strong as well. They have great damage, although it feels like a fire mage, so you have sometimes to kite or build up the damage. But they got nerfed on survivability, which is acceptable. But I do feel like they still can survive a lot of damage. I think it's deserved to be a B tier at least, but they are a bit lower than Frost Mage in my opinion. While Fire Mage, I think it's sleeper. They do die, but they are A tier still. They got a nerf on Fireball, unfortunately. I tested. It does less damage than before the patch, unfortunately. But I do feel that they have still lots of things going on for them. I do feel like they can actually carry games as well with combustion. With low coordination, fire mages can actually do pretty good things. Again, the harder thing about fire mage is the survivability, pretty much. If you can survive damage, you can win games. If you don't survive damage, you lose a game. But again, that has always been like this for mage, except in shadowlands where they were tanks, and we don't want that anymore. But they need something extra to survive damage. But I think currently, with the current meta, fire mage can do some pretty good things, and also it kind of shows with the representation as well. Let's talk about rogues first, and then shaman. I think sub rogue is a weird spec to judge. If you judge on popularity of the spec, you might say that the spec is bad because of representation, but it is not the case. I think it's mostly because people don't know how to play sub rogue, except doing a cast sequence, which works if you actually do it and you can actually achieve the kill on target. But if you don't achieve the kill and you're trying to do a cast sequence while you don't need it, and you try to have to play for yourself, it feels like it's bad. Now, I think there is a world where you have good sub-rogues and bad sub-rogues. I think it's the same as Survival Hunter, where the power of the spec lies within the hands of the player. But for me, personally, I do feel like it's A tier. And again, A tier, but on the lower side. Mainly because the worst players actually negates the fact that a good player could make it feel S tier, but they got nerfed a bit on Gore Mouse, which is justified. But I think with people having 4 sets, 2 sets, people actually having better gear, I think the sub-rogue factor is actually a bit gone. But again, you can be one-shot in the shadow duel, you can always be one-shot in the smoke bomb, you can steal victories with the smoke bomb as well, so I think A tier is deserved. It could be B tier on a lot of spec, on a lot of tier lists, which I can understand, but I feel like it's stronger than you would think, in my opinion. I think Outlaw Rogue is not bad. I think it's niche though. It's very hard to judge because I don't feel like I face a lot of Outlaw Rogues, to be honest. I think it's a very niche spec. I think it's very difficult to pull off as well. I think in general, a good Outlaw Rogue kind of shines very well, while a bad Outlaw Rogue feels like it's a Fury Warrior pretty much. So I'm going to judge it like I think I've judged all the specs, which is a combination of a good player and a bad player. What is the average player going to do on the Outlaw Rogue? I think it's a B tier spec in Soul Shuffle, but I think top of B tier. I know, please don't type in the comments saying, "Oh, but Dogray, Outlaw Rogue is so strong. I see Nash playing Outlaw Rogue and he can one-shot everyone." Look, if I look big mix, I want to put survival on S tier, but it is not the case. Not everyone is playing like Nash, not everyone is playing like Big Max. Stop giving me names of people that play way better on their spec that you would ever do. It's not happening. You see the average Outlaw Rogue, you're going to say, but it's not that good. But you see the best players play Outlaw Rogue and you're going to say, God damn, that spec needs to be nerfed. But you cannot judge the spec only on the best players ever, because they have some sort of talent. They can actually play well on their spec. They trained thousands of hours on these specs, and you cannot really judge it on only that, because again, if I have to judge about that, I think Survival Hunter would be very high, which is not the case currently in my eyes. So right now, Outlaw Rogue, they are the same. They can feel very strong, but if you're playing in 1800, if you're playing in 2100, you will not feel like Outlaw Rogue is OP. But if you're going on 2400, which for example in US you see one Outlaw Rogue, which again I respect that he got 2400 on Soul Shuffle and he's doing well. I mean, you cannot really say, look, there is one Outlaw Rogue in 2400, so he has to be S tier. I think it's a very very short shortcut. So just judge it on the majority of the players. While Assassination Rogue, I think it's way better than a Sub Rogue. I think it's a bit better than Retribution Paladin. But I think it's mainly because of the average player, where I'm going to put them a bit lower. It is playing like an arm sword pretty much. It's not really a rogue spec, although it does feel like a rogue spec because you can actually play Shadowlands and you can have a bit more control. But the many assassination rogues I see even on stream, they kind of zug and they actually make it work. So I do feel like it's strong. I do feel like they are carrying games as well with CC, but they actually have a lot of consistent damage and burst damage at times. You can steal wins. The good thing is, with less Retribution Paladins playing, with less Holy Paladins, with less Evokers, it does feel like Assassination Rogue has a better place in the meta than previous season, but it's mainly because of the meta having changed. The Demon Hunters are actually a snack for you. DKs, they feel like they are like punching bags to you. BM Hunter, you can stop them. Demolocks and Destruction Warlocks, you can train them. So I feel like Assassination Rogues, they can do well even versus meta players. meta specs. That's why it deserves A tier. And now the 3 last specs. It has been a 1-hour video, but hopefully you did enjoy the video, because I try to give a lot of information. I try to give also the reasoning. I know that some people do tier lists and they say like quickfire why arms is A or whatever, but I try to make you understand LE5 pretty much why a spec is a certain tier in my opinion, so there is no ambiguity between my words and the placements of the specs. Now, Resto Shaman I think is a surprise. I do feel like they're very strong. I think it's the 8 spec. They could be higher, but I think there needs to be separation between those specs. The 4 set is interesting actually. I think Restoration Shaman is very strong. I think people are sleeping on it. They're not playing it, but once they realize that 4 set is strong on Resto Shaman, they're going to play way more. I do feel like also they kind of lag because of the meta, and once the meta is over, they're going to jump tiers. Again, I understand they are not played. I can understand why you would put them at B tier. I do play sometimes a Resto Shaman. I do feel like it's okay. I think it's strong. I think it has damage. It has utility. It has the purges. It has the many things. And Riptide being that strong because of the 4 set enables them way more than we would think. Right now you can do 2 set, which is not bad. And once you have 4 set, I think it's going to be even better. Right now I'm going to put them in conservative tier, which is A tier. But I could put them higher depending on the 4 set. But right now I'm going to put them on A tier. I think it's still very strong as a spec. Elemental Shaman, I think it's A tier, A plus, excuse me. I think it's slept on. The buffs on the Stormkeeper is going to be interesting. I say Stormkeeper because Lightning Bolt got buffed, so it's going to add more damage on your Stormkeeper. If you're playing without Volcanic Surge, if you play with Volcanic Surge, it feels like it's a status quo. But I do feel like right now it has damage, it has some CC, it has utility. If you actually play with totemic projection, you can actually do well. I made a guide about Elemental Shaman, so if you want to check that out, you can check that out. Personally, I'm excited about Elemental Shaman. I think it's a very strong spec. And yes, melee cleaves are going to be annoying to deal with, but once you know how to kite and once you can actually be annoying, you can actually do a lot of damage, which is unavoidable, which is instance. It's very strong. Enhancement Shaman, I'm going to put them on B tier. I think it's strong. There is a Lava Lash build going on right now, which I play also right now. There's also still the Storm Strike build, which is like known by everyone. There's also like a hybrid build, pretty much. You could also play that. I think Enhancement Shaman has a lot of build paths, but it's going to be something that is not going to make you jump tiers because of the defensives that you have currently in the game. If you get stunned, there is nothing you can say you can actually do to save yourself. Astral Shift is very strong, but it's only 1 CD, and after that you only have heals. So for me, it's going to be B tier. I think it's good. I don't think it's bad, but I do feel like they are lower than the A tier specs. So this marks the end of the video. I know it's a very long video. My mouth is super dry. I always want to drink, but I wanted to make that video again for my viewers, for my subscribers. People asked for it. I actually hold it off until we had a patch, and we got a patch. I do feel like right now we have a pretty standard meta. I try to not put everyone on S tier and A tier, A plus. So hopefully you appreciate it. Hopefully you appreciate the explanation I give for every single spec. I know we could have some differences. If you say that Feral is higher or lower, if you say that Survival is higher or lower, we can respect that. It doesn't make my tier list or your tier list bad. It just makes it different. And perspective is very important. I think perspective is the main thing for a tier list. And my perspective could be, again, vastly different than yours. And it's respectable to have a different tier list. And it's respectable to have a different opinion. So we can discuss about it in the comment section below. Again, thank you for watching. Have a good day. Bye.